On a stormy night, Peter dared the impossible. He walked on water. Was it an illusion, a natural phenomena, or a miracle of faith? For millennia, this story has intrigued us. Could the inexplicable be explained? Let's dive into this mystery and unravel the theories behind one of history's most fascinating events. The narrative of Peter walking on water, as recounted in Matthew 14:22-33, is one of the most emblematic and debated events in the Gospels, serving as the fundamental basis for our central theme. The Sea of Galilee, known in Hebrew as Kinneret, was the stage for this extraordinary scene. This freshwater lake, though beautiful and vital to the region, was famous for its sudden and violent storms, caused by the surrounding topography that channeled strong winds. For experienced fishermen like Peter, Andrew, James, and John, facing these storms was a routine but dangerous part of their lives. The story begins after Jesus had performed the miracle of feeding the multitudes, after which he dismissed the crowds and his disciples, ordering the latter to go by boat to the other side of the sea, while he went up to a mountain to pray in solitude. As the night progressed, the disciples' boat was battered by furious waves and head-on winds. They struggled against the storm, making difficult progress. It was then, in the fourth watch of the night, that a mysterious figure appeared, walking on the agitated surface of the sea. Terror gripped the disciples, who, in their distress and with their vision obscured by the darkness and the storm, mistook him for a ghost. Their fear was palpable, and their cries of fright echoed over the roar of the waves. But Jesus' voice, calm and powerful, cut through the tumult. "Take courage! It is I, don't be afraid." It is at this moment of relief, surprise, and a hint of disbelief that Peter, impetuous, impulsive, and always the first to act, cried out, "Lord, if it is you, tell me to come to you on the water." And Jesus, with a single word, called him, "Come." The basis of the central theme here is the visceral confrontation between the natural and the supernatural, where faith is tested in the face of the impossible. The origins of the belief in the miracle lie in the very nature of the biblical narrative, which positions Jesus not only as a spiritual master, but as the Lord of creation, capable of suspending or operating beyond the laws of nature. Peter, in turn, is portrayed as a human being with flaws, fears, and doubts, but also with an audacious faith and a willingness to go beyond the limits of the ordinary. The duality between divine omnipotence and human fragility is the cornerstone of this story, laying the groundwork for all subsequent interpretations, whether theological, emphasizing the power of faith and divine intervention, or scientific, seeking rational explanations for the event. Peter's faith, even if momentary and imperfect, is the pillar that sustains the possibility of such a singular feat, opening the door to questioning what truly happened that night. This chapter sets the scene, the characters, and the central dilemma. What is possible when faith meets the inexplicable? The depth of this enigma is what drives us to explore the various facets of the central theme. In light of the account of Peter walking on water, various manifestations and initial theories emerge to try and explain the event, illustrating the complexity of the central theme and humanity's incessant search for understanding. The most widespread interpretation, and the one that most aligns with Christian faith, is undoubtedly that of a miracle. In this scenario, Peter's walk on water is seen as a direct and unquestionable manifestation of divine power, irrefutable proof of Jesus' divinity and faith's ability to transcend natural laws. Proponents of this view argue that by focusing on Jesus and obeying his command, Peter is empowered to accomplish the impossible, and only sinks when his faith falters. When he takes his eyes off Christ and focuses on the waves and the wind, allowing doubt and fear to overcome him. This perspective highlights the transcendent nature of the event, where faith becomes the key to the supernatural, and the main lesson is the importance of absolute trust in God. On the other hand, in a world increasingly guided by reason and science, naturalistic explanations emerge. attempting to find scientific logic for what occurred, without necessarily denying faith, but seeking an understanding that fits within the laws of physics and biology. One of the best-known theories suggests the existence of submerged sandbanks in the Sea of Galilee. Geologists and hydrologists who have studied the region point out that at certain times of the year, or when water levels are lower due to dry periods or climatic variations, shallow areas near the shore could emerge or have such a thin layer of water that it would create the illusion of someone walking on the surface, when in fact they would be stepping on firm ground, albeit covered by a thin layer of water. Nighttime visibility, the agitated sea, and the disciples' stress could have contributed to this distorted perception. Another naturalistic theory, perhaps more intriguing and gaining some popularity in academic circles, points to the possibility of floating ice or temporary ice sheets. Although the climate around the Sea of Galilee is predominantly mild, historical records and paleoclimatic studies indicate the occurrence of severe winters in the region, with temperatures cold enough for ice formation. Researchers such as Professor Darren Knopf from Florida State University have published studies suggesting that, under specific climatic conditions, a thin layer of ice could have formed on parts of the lake, especially in shallower or protected areas. If there was a thin and unstable layer of ice on the water, Jesus, and for a brief moment, Peter, could have walked on it, giving the impression of walking on water. The fact that Peter sank could be explained by the ice breaking under his weight or the instability of the surface. These theories do not disqualify Peter's faith experience for believers, but they offer rational alternatives for an event that, at first glance, seems to defy all laws of physics. Concrete illustrations of these cases, such as the observation of sandbanks in lakes and ice formation in temperate climates, bring the central theme to a more tangible dimension, allowing for a debate between faith and science, between mystery and logical explanation. This chapter demonstrates how the human mind, faced with the inexplicable, incessantly searches for patterns and understandings, manifesting in narratives that range from the divine to the purely natural. To deepen our understanding of the central theme, Peter walking on water, it is crucial to explore the underlying laws, patterns, and mechanisms that govern both the natural world and human perception, and how Peter's story challenges or fits within them. The laws of physics, particularly hydrostatics and density, are clear and unequivocal. The density of the human body is slightly greater than that of water, meaning that without external support or a buoyant force, a person will sink. Therefore, walking on water, under normal pressure and temperature conditions, is physically impossible. This is the basis for skepticism regarding the miracle and the driving force behind the search for naturalistic explanations. Gravity pulls, water yields, and the body submerges. However, the biblical account suggests that for a brief moment, Peter defied this fundamental law. This leads us directly to the concept of cognitive dissonance, a psychological mechanism introduced by Leon Festinger, in which the mind seeks to reduce the discomfort caused by holding two or more contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values simultaneously. When confronted with an event that challenges our rational understanding, such as someone walking on water, our minds may seek explanations that reduce this tension. For those with unwavering faith, the explanation is a miracle. Divine intervention temporarily suspended natural laws, or Jesus, as God incarnate, operated outside these laws. There is no dissonance as faith bridges the gap. For those seeking a rational explanation who refuse to accept the supernatural, theories of ice or sandbanks emerge to reconcile the account with the laws of physics, eliminating the apparent contradiction. The mind, in this case, reorganizes perceived facts to fit into a coherent and predictable worldview. Furthermore, the psychological dynamic of faith and doubt is a central and deeply human mechanism in the account. Peter manages to walk on water as long as his faith in Jesus is unwavering, as long as his eyes are fixed on the Master. The moment he takes his eyes off Jesus, focuses on the storm, the violent waves, and the physical impossibility of his situation, his faith falters and he begins to sink. This illustrates the power of belief and the mind over perceived reality, and how fear and doubt can be paralyzing. The account suggests that faith, even if for a brief period, acts as a catalyst for what seems impossible, while doubt acts as a weight pulling him back to the reality of human limitations. This oscillation between faith and doubt is not just a narrative element. It is a universal psychological pattern that resonates with the human experience of facing challenges. The inner workings of the central theme, therefore, are not limited to the physics of water and the human body, but extend to the complexity of the human psyche and the intricate interaction between belief, perception, and reality. The story forces us to question not only what is physically possible, but also the power of the mind and faith in shaping our experience and understanding of the world. What are the implicit rules of this phenomenon? Are they the rules of physics or the rules of faith, or an intersection of both, where intention and conviction can, for an instant, subvert what we consider fixed? Cognitive dissonance shows us that the human mind is a powerful tool in interpreting reality, capable of building bridges between what is seen and what is believed, even if those bridges are built over a sea of uncertainties. The central theme of Peter walking on water, whether viewed as an unquestionable miracle, a perceptual illusion, or an explicable natural phenomenon, transcends time and connects to contemporary context in surprising ways, addressing the evolution and broader implications of the narrative. In the modern scenario, the story continues to be a point of debate and reflection among faith, science, and even psychology. For religious communities worldwide, the story of Peter and Jesus walking on water remains a fundamental pillar of faith. It reinforces the belief in divine power and faith's ability to move mountains, or, in this case, to allow a human being to walk on water. It is a powerful metaphor for overcoming seemingly impossible challenges through belief, obedience, and resilience. In sermons, motivational speeches, and self-help books, Peter's story is frequently used to illustrate the power of positive thinking, the importance of taking the first step, even in the face of the unknown, and the need to stay focused on the goal, without letting adversity defeat you. The central lesson is that fear and doubt are the true obstacles that prevent us from reaching our potential, not physical or circumstantial limitations. This interpretation deeply resonates with the human search for meaning and overcoming. On the other hand, the information age and the advancement of scientific thought have driven an incessant search for rational explanations for biblical events. Scientific documentaries, academic articles, and television programs frequently explore the theories of ice or sandbanks, using modern tools such as geology, climatology, archaeology, and even computer simulations to try and recreate the conditions of the Sea of Galilee at the time. This effort is not necessarily aimed at discrediting faith, but rather at understanding how natural phenomena, perhaps rare or extraordinary, could have been interpreted as miracles in ancient times, when scientific knowledge was limited and the worldview was predominantly religious. Human curiosity to unravel the mysteries of the past is a driving force behind this investigation. The discussion about Peter walking on water also raises crucial questions about textual interpretation and hermeneutics. How should we read ancient texts that contain seemingly supernatural elements? Should we interpret them literally, as factual accounts of events that defied the laws of nature? Or should we interpret them symbolically, as narratives with deep spiritual and moral meanings, but not necessarily describing literal physical events? Or perhaps, should we seek a naturalistic explanation that harmonizes the account with modern science? This question is central to the ongoing dialogue between religion and academia, and it shapes how new generations approach sacred texts, seeking an understanding that is both faithful to tradition and consistent with contemporary knowledge. The central theme manifests in modern scenarios as a laboratory for critical thinking, where different perspectives, theological, scientific, psychological, philosophical, meet to unravel an event that continues to challenge our understanding. It forces us to question the limits of the possible, the role of faith in perceiving reality, and how historical narratives are constructed, transmitted, and reinterpreted over time. Peter's story continues to inspire and intrigue, proving its timeless relevance and its ability to generate dialogue in an increasingly complex and multifaceted world. What does the future hold in terms of new discoveries that might shed light on this ancient mystery? The quest continues. The Red Sea in its current configuration is a vast and imposing body of water of invaluable geopolitical and ecological importance. It is characterized by its impressive depths, which reach over 2,000 meters in some points, its lush marine ecosystems rich in coral reefs, a paradise for divers and marine biologists, and by being one of the most strategic and busy shipping routes on the planet, connecting the Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean through the vital Suez Canal. Under these current geographical conditions, the idea that winds could part it from end to end, creating a dry path in its depths, is in fact unfeasible and lacks any scientific support. The average depths and the vast expanse of water far exceed what would be necessary for large-scale wind set-down event. However, the central theme of this script, the parting of the Red Sea by wind, is not limited to the present geography, but invites us on a fascinating journey through time. The key to scientific plausibility lies in considering the paleogeographical conditions of the region millennia ago, during the period when the Exodus is believed to have occurred. Geological and archaeological studies indicate that the coastline and bathymetry of the Red Sea and its surroundings were significantly different in antiquity. The presence of ancient branches of the Nile that extended to the coast, vast reed marshes, and shallow coastal lagoons connected to the main body of the sea make the scenario of a wind set-down much more conceivable in a specific and limited area rather than the entire sea. The historical reinterpretation of the Exodus in light of these scientific hypotheses is by no means intended to demystify faith or discredit the religious narrative. On the contrary, it seeks to enrich our understanding of ancient events, offering a perspective where science and religion may not be mutually exclusive, but complementary and even harmonious. The possibility of an extraordinary natural phenomenon being interpreted as a divine miracle does not diminish the faith of those who believe in the intervention of a higher power. Instead, it may suggest that divine providence manifests in ways that respect and operate through the laws of nature rather than defying them. In this view, God would not need to break his own physical laws to perform a miracle. He could instead orchestrate natural conditions so precisely, at the exact time and place, that the result would be, to the human observer, indistinguishable from a direct supernatural intervention. The perfect synchronicity between desperate human need and the occurrence of a rare natural phenomenon of great magnitude can, in itself, be the true miracle. This perspective allows the biblical narrative to be viewed in a new light, where the sacred and the natural intertwine in a profound and meaningful way. The search for scientific explanations for events described in ancient religious texts is not an attempt to prove or disprove the existence of God or the veracity of faith. Instead, it is a quest for a more complete and multifaceted understanding of the human experience, our relationship with the natural world, and how ancient cultures perceived and interpreted events around them, often attributing incomprehensible natural forces to the divine realm. The discussion surrounding the parting of the Red Sea serves as an excellent example of how science and religion can coexist in a respectful dialogue, offering different, yet equally valid, lenses through which we can view the world and its mysteries. The evolution of the central theme throughout history is the very evolution of human knowledge, which seeks to reconcile millennia-old and deeply rooted narratives with the discoveries and insights of contemporary sciences, keeping alive the fascination with an event that indelibly marked human history and the formation of a faith. Even though advancements in science and sophisticated computer simulations offer a plausible and physically coherent explanation for the parting of the Red Sea by winds, it is fundamental that the journey of scientific exploration humbly bows to the limits of human understanding and the very tools we employ. Models, by their very nature, are simplifications of complex reality. However detailed and precise they may be, they can never perfectly recreate the exact conditions of an event that occurred millennia ago, in a past where meteorological records were non-existent and topography differed significantly from what we observe today. The variables involved are countless, and each simplification carries a degree of uncertainty. The wind set down hypothesis, while scientifically robust in its theoretical principles and validated by simulations, still depends on a conjunction of highly improbable factors to have occurred exactly as described in the biblical narrative. It would require winds of extraordinary force and duration to blow from an exact and constant direction in a specific and geologically favorable area of the sea, and for all of this to happen precisely at the moment when a large group of people, fleeing deadly persecution, desperately needed an escape route. The probability of all these variables aligning perfectly in time and space is so statistically minuscule that, for some, the improbability itself is a type of miracle, a manifestation of divine providence, orchestrating natural forces for a greater crucial purpose. For believers, the gap between the scientific explanation and the biblical description, which emphasizes direct and supernatural divine intervention with absolute power over nature, remains vast. For them, the event firmly remains within the realm of the supernatural, a testament to God's omnipotence and sovereignty that transcends any earthly or naturalistic explanation. The challenge of science in this context is not to deny faith or attempt to disprove a deep-seated belief, but rather to offer an alternative perspective that invites reflection, dialogue, and a broader understanding of the complexity of history and natural phenomena. The beauty of this debate lies precisely in its ability to make us ponder what is truly comprehensible by human reason, and what may forever transcend our capacity for analysis and measurement. The central theme, the parting of the Red Sea, continues to be a fascinating enigma that invites us to explore the thin boundaries between the natural and the divine, between science and faith. It reminds us that, however much we advance in knowledge, however much we unravel the universe's secrets through our investigations and technologies, there will always be room for mystery and for the wonder of the unexplainable. Ultimately, the narrative of the Exodus and the crossing of the Red Sea, whether interpreted as a literal miracle or an extraordinarily opportune natural event, continues to inspire and pique human curiosity, a constant invitation to deep reflection on the vastness of the universe and the forces that govern it, whether they are within our grasp of understanding or, perhaps forever, beyond it. The story, therefore, does not conclude with a single definitive answer, but expands into multiple possibilities, keeping alive the awe for an event that defies time, logic, and comprehension. The story of the Red Sea, whether as an unquestionable divine miracle or a rare natural phenomenon, continues to fascinate us and provoke reflection. Science offers us a powerful lens to try to understand the mechanisms of the world, but faith invites us to contemplate what lies beyond what we can measure and prove. In the end, what do you believe truly happened on that epic day?